وہ شمع اجالا جس نے کیا 40 برس تک غاروں میں، وہ شمع اجالا جس نے کیا 40 برس تک غاروں میں، ایک روز چمکنے والی تھی سب دنیا کے درباروں میں، ایک روز چمکنے والی تھی سب دنیا کے درباروں میں، گر ارض و سما کی محفل میں لولا کلمہ کا شور نہ ہو، گر ارض و سما کی محفل میں لولا کلمہ کا شور نہ ہو، یہ رنگ نہ ہو گلزاروں میں، یہ نور نہ ہو سیاروں میں، یہ رنگ نہ ہو گلزاروں میں، یہ نور نہ ہو سیاروں میں، وہ شمع اجالا جس نے کیا 40 برس تک غاروں میں، جو فلسفیوں سے کھل نہ سکا، جو نکتہ وروں سے حل نہ ہوا، جو فلسفیوں سے کھل نہ سکا، جو نکتہ وروں سے حل نہ ہوا، وہ رازق کملی والے نے بتلا دیا چند اشاروں میں، وہ رازق کملی والے نے بتلا دیے چند اشاروں میں، وہ شمع اجالا جس نے کیا 40 برس تک غاروں میں، وہ جنس نہیں ایمان جسے لے آئے دکان فلسفہ سے، وہ جنس نہیں ایمان جسے لے آنے فلسفہ سے، ڈھونڈے سے ملے گی عاقل کو یہ قرآن کیسے پاروں میں، ڈھونڈے سے ملے گی عاقل کو یہ قرآن کیسے پاروں میں، وہ شمع اجالا جس نے کیا 40 برس تک غاروں میں، ہے کرنے ایک ہی مشعل کی، بوبکر عمر عثمان و علی، کرنے ایک ہی مشعل کی، بو بکر عمر عثمان و علی، ہم مرتبہ یاران نبی، کچھ فرق نہیں ان چاروں میں، ہم مرتبہ یاران نبی، کچھ فرق نہیں ان چاروں میں، وہ شمع اجالا جس نے کیا 40 برس تک غاروں میں، ایک روز چمکنے والی تھی سب دنیا کے درباروں میں، وہ شمع اجالا جس نے کیا 40 برس تک غاروں میں۔
مکینوں مکان تمہارے لیے، زمینوں زمان تمہارے لیے، مکینوں مکان تمہارے لیے، چنینوں چنا تمہارے لیے، بنے دو جہاں تمہارے لیے، چنینوں چنا تمہارے لیے، بنے دو جہاں تمہارے لیے۔ السلام علیکم ناظرین، خیر مقدم ہے آپ سب کا، ویلکم ٹو آور تفسیر سیشن۔ انشاءاللہ آج ہم سورہ محمد جو قرآن مجید کی 47ویں صورت ہے، اس کا آخری رکو نمبر 4 پڑھ لیتے ہیں۔ انشاءاللہ اس طرح سے سورہ محمد کمپلیٹ ہو جائے گا۔ سب سے پہلے اس کی تلاوت کر لیں گے، آیت نمبر 29 to 38، رکو نمبر 4۔ اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم، بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم۔ ام حسب الذین فی قلوبهم مرض ان لن یخرج اللہ اضغانهم ولو نشاء لأریناکهم فلعرفتهم بسیماهم ولتعرفنهم فی لحن القول واللہ یعلم اعمالکم وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ حَتَّى نَعْلَمَ الْمُجَاهِدِينَ مِنْكُمْ وَالصَّابِرِينَ وَنَبْلُوَ أَخْبَارَكُمْ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا وَصَدُّوا عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وشاقوا الرسول من بعد ما تبين لهم الهدى لن يضروا الله شيئا وسيحبط أعمالهم يا أيها الذين آمنوا أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول ولا تبطلوا أعمالكم إن الذين كفروا وصدوا عن سبيل الله ثم ماتوا وهم كفار فلن يغفر الله لهم فلا تهنوا وتدعوا إلى السلم وأنتم الأعلون والله معكم ولن يتركم أعمالكم إنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو وإن تؤمنوا وتتقوا يؤتكم أجوركم ولا يسألكم أموالكم إن يسألكموها فيحفيكم تبخلوا ويخرج أضغانكم ها أنتم هؤلاء تدعون لتنفقوا في سبيل الله فمنكم من يبخل ومن يبخل فإنما يبخل عن نفسه والله الغني وأنتم الفقراء وإن تتولوا يستبدل قوما غيركم ثم لا يكونوا أمثالكم صدق اللہ العظیم۔ یہ تھی آیت نمبر 29 to 38 رکو نمبر 4۔ انشاءاللہ اس کا ٹرانسلیشن پڑھ لیتے ہیں۔ کیا وہ لوگ جن کے دلوں میں بیماری ہے یہ سمجھے بیٹھے ہیں کہ اللہ ان کے دلوں کے کھوٹ ظاہر نہیں کرے گا؟ ہم چاہیں تو انہیں تم کو آنکھوں سے دکھا دیں اور ان کے چہروں سے تم ان کو پہچان لو، مگر ان کے انداز کلام سے تو تم ان کو جان ہی لوگے۔ اللہ تم سب کے اعمال سے خوب واقف۔ ہم ضرور تم لوگوں کو آزمائش میں ڈالیں گے تاکہ تمہارے حالات کی جانچ کریں اور دیکھ لیں کہ تم میں مجاہد اور ثابت قدم کون ہیں۔ جن لوگوں نے کفر کیا اور اللہ کی راہ سے روکا اور رسول سے جھگڑا کیا جبکہ ان پر راہ راست واضح ہو چکی تھی، در حقیقت وہ اللہ بلکہ اللہ ہی ان کا سب کیا کرایا غارت کر دے گا۔ اے لوگو جو ایمان لائے ہو، تم اللہ کی اطاعت کرو اور رسول کی اطاعت کرو اور اپنے اعمال کو برباد نہ کرو۔ کفر کرنے والوں اور راہ خدا سے روکنے والوں اور مرتے دم تک کفر پر جمے رہنے والوں کو تو اللہ ہرگز معاف نہ کرے گا۔ بس تم بودے نہ بنو اور صلح کی درخواست نہ کرو، تم ہی غالب رہنے والے ہو، اللہ تمہارے ساتھ ہے اور تمہارے اعمال کو وہ ہرگز ضائع نہ کرے گا۔ یہ دنیا کی زندگی تو ایک کھیل اور تماشا ہے، اگر تم ایمان رکھو اور تقوی کی روش پر چلتے رہو تو اللہ تمہارے اجر تم کو دے گا اور وہ تمہارے مال تم سے نہ مانگے گا۔ اگر کہیں وہ تمہارے مال تم سے مانگ لے اور سب کے سب تم سے طلب کر لے تو تم بخل کرو گے اور وہ تمہارے کھوٹ ابھار لائے گا۔ دیکھو تم لوگوں کو دعوت دی جا رہی ہے کہ اللہ کی راہ میں مال خرچ کرو، اس پر تم میں سے کچھ لوگ ہیں جو بخل کر رہے ہیں، حالانکہ جو بخل کرتا ہے وہ در حقیقت اپنی آپ ہی سے بخل کر رہا ہے۔ اللہ تو غنی ہے، تم ہی اس کے محتاج ہو۔ اگر تم منہ موڑو گے تو اللہ تمہاری جگہ کسی اور قوم کو لے آئے گا اور وہ تم جیسے نہ ہوں گے۔ یہ تھا ٹرانسلیشن آج کی ان آیتوں کا۔ انشاءاللہ اس کی تفسیر میں جانے سے قبل ہم تھوڑا سا ریکیپ کر لیتے ہیں کہ پچھلے رکوع میں ہم نے کیا پڑھا تھا۔ ہم نے دیکھا کہ پچھلے رکوع میں اللہ رب العزت نے جو منافقین تھے مکے میں، یعنی مکے میں ایک اور نئی قسم کے لوگ تھے، یعنی کہ مکے میں تو صرف مشرکین اور ایمان والے تھے، لیکن مدینے میں ایک اور نئی قسم کے لوگ جمع ہوئے تھے جو بظاہر مسلمان تو ہو گئے تھے لیکن ان کے دل میں نفاق تھا، یعنی کہ وہ لوگوں کے ساتھ اسلام تو قبول کر چکے تھے مگر وہ اسلام ان کے دلوں میں نہ گھس سکا تھا اور اللہ تعالیٰ نے جو بھی ان سے قربانی مانگی تھی وہ اس پر تیار نہ تھے، اور وہی لوگوں کا سلسلہ کلام آج بھی چل رہا ہے۔ تو انشاءاللہ اس کی تفسیر پڑھ لیتے ہیں۔ کیا وہ لوگ جن کے دلوں میں بیماری ہے یہ سمجھے بیٹھے ہیں کہ اللہ ان کے دلوں کے کھوٹ ظاہر نہیں کرے گا؟ ہم چاہیں تو انہیں تم کو آنکھوں سے دکھا دے اور ان کے چہروں سے تم ان کو پہچان لو، مگر ان کے انداز کلام سے تو تم ان کو جان ہی لوگے۔ اللہ تم سب کے اعمال سے خوب واقف ہے۔ ہم ضرور تم لوگوں کو آزمائش میں ڈالیں گے تاکہ تمہارے حالات کی جانچ کریں اور دیکھ لیں کہ تم میں مجاہد اور ثابت قدم کون ہیں۔ جن لوگوں نے کفر کیا اور اللہ کی راہ سے روکا اور رسول سے جھگڑا کیا جبکہ ان پر راہ راست واضح ہو چکی تھی، در حقیقت وہ اللہ کا کوئی نقصان بھی نہیں کر سکتے، بلکہ اللہ ہی ان کا سب کیا کرایا غارت کر دے گا۔ اس فقرے کے دو مطلب ہیں، ایک یہ کہ جن کاموں کو انہوں نے اپنے نزدیک نیک سمجھ کر کیا ہے اللہ ان سب کو ضائع کر دے اور آخرت میں ان کا کوئی اجر بھی وہ نہ پا سکیں گے۔ دوسرا مطلب یہ ہے کہ جو تدبیریں بھی وہ اللہ اور اس کے رسول کے دین کا راستہ روکنے کے لیے کر رہے ہیں وہ سب ناکام و نامراد ہو جائیں گے۔ اے لوگوں جو ایمان لائے ہو، تم اللہ کی اطاعت کرو اور رسول کی اطاعت کرو اور اپنے اعمال کو برباد نہ کر لو۔ بالفاظ دیگر اعمال کے نافع اور نتیجہ خیز ہونے کا سارا انحصار اللہ اور اس کے رسول کی اطاعت پر ہے۔ اطاعت سے منحرف ہو جانے کے بعد کوئی عمل بھی خیر نہیں رہتا کہ آدمی اس پر کوئی اجر پانے کا مستحق ہو سکے۔ کفر کرنے والوں اور راہ خدا سے روکنے والوں اور مرتے دم تک کفر پر جمے رہنے والوں کو تو اللہ ہرگز معاف نہ کرے گا۔ بس تم بودے نہ بنو اور صلح کی درخواست نہ کرو۔ یہاں یہ بات نگاہ میں رکھنی چاہیے کہ یہ ارشاد اس زمانے میں فرمایا گیا ہے جب صرف مدینے کی چھوٹی سی بستی میں چند سو مہاجرین و انصار کی ایک مٹھی بھر جمعیت اسلام کی علم برداری کر رہی تھی، اور اس کا مقابلہ محض قریش کے طاقتور قبیلے ہی نہیں بلکہ پورے ملک عرب کے کفار و مشرکین سے تھا۔ اس حالت میں فرمایا جا رہا ہے کہ ہمت ہار کر ان دشمنوں سے صلح کی درخواست نہ کرنے لگو، بلکہ سر دھڑ کی بازی لگا دینے کے لیے تیار ہو جاؤ۔ اس ارشاد کا یہ مطلب نہیں ہے کہ مسلمانوں کو کبھی صلح کی بات چیت کرنی ہی نہ چاہیے، بلکہ اس کا مطلب یہ ہے کہ ایسی حالت میں صلح کی سلسلہ جنبانی کرنا درست نہیں، جب اس کے معنی اپنی کمزوری کے اظہار کے ہوں اور اس سے دشمن اور زیادہ دلیر ہو جائے۔ مسلمانوں کو پہلے اپنی طاقت کا لوہا منوا لینا چاہیے، اس کے بعد وہ صلح کی بات چیت کرے تو مضائقہ نہیں۔ تم ہی غالب رہنے والوں ہو، اللہ تمہارے ساتھ ہے اور تمہارے اعمال کو وہ ہرگز ضائع نہ کرے گا۔ یہ دنیا کی زندگی تو ایک کھیل اور تماشا ہے، یعنی آخرت کے مقابلے میں اس دنیا کی حیثیت اس سے زیادہ کچھ نہیں ہے کہ چند روز کا دل بہلاوا ہے۔ یہاں کی کامرانی و ناکامی کوئی حقیقی اور پائیدار چیز نہیں ہے جسے کوئی اہمیت حاصل ہو۔ اصل زندگی آخرت کی ہے، جس کی کامیابی کے لیے انسان کو فکر کرنی چاہیے۔ اگر تم ایمان رکھو اور تقوی کی روش پر چلتے رہو تو اللہ تمہارے اجر تم کو دے گا اور وہ تمہارے مال تم سے نہ مانگے گا، یعنی وہ غنی ہے، اسے اپنی ذات کے لیے تم سے لینے کی کچھ ضرورت نہیں۔ اگر وہ اپنی راہ میں تم سے کچھ خرچ کرنے کے لیے کہتا ہے تو وہ اپنے لیے نہیں بلکہ تمہاری ہی بھلائی کے لیے۔ اگر کہیں وہ تمہارے مال تم سے مانگ لے اور سب کے سب تم سے طلب کر لے تو تم بخل کرو گے اور وہ تمہارے کھوٹ ابھار لائے گا، یعنی اتنی بڑی آزمائش میں وہ تمہیں نہیں ڈالتا جس سے تمہاری کمزوریاں ابھر آئیں۔ دیکھو تم لوگوں کو دعوت دی جا رہی ہے کہ اللہ کی راہ میں مال خرچ کرو، اس پر تم میں سے کچھ لوگ ہیں جو بخل کر رہے ہیں، حالانکہ جو بخل کرتا ہے وہ در حقیقت اپنے آپ ہی سے بخل کر رہا ہے۔ اللہ تو غنی ہے، تم ہی اس کے محتاج ہو۔ اگر تم منہ موڑو گے تو اللہ تمہاری جگہ کسی اور قوم کو لے آئے گا اور وہ تم جیسے نہ ہوں گے۔ یہ تھی تفسیر اس رکوع کی۔ اس طرح سے آج سورہ محمد کے 4 رکوع کمپلیٹ ہو چکے ہیں اور اس طرح سے سورت کا اختتام ہوا۔ انشاءاللہ ہم پھر حاضر ہوں گے اگلی سورت جو سورہ فتح ہے، وہ بھی مدنی سورت ہے، اس کو لے کر۔ جزاک اللہ خیر۔
جزاک اللہ خیر نظام بھائی، بہت شکریہ۔
انشاءاللہ جزاک اللہ۔ السلام
اب
علیکم۔
انشاءاللہ پھر اس کو آگے میں کنٹینیو کر دیتا ہوں۔
انشاءاللہ السلام علیکم۔
کوچے میں چلتا ہی گیا، چلتا ہی گیا۔
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome all of you to our evening sessions. We hope you had a good week, and several things changed over this week, including a new lockdown here in London, and in terms of what's going on elsewhere. The US elections has been part of pretty much every conversation over the week. So, well, it's not pretty clear at the moment. I think they haven't finalized yet but it looks like the current president will be finishing his term as the president, and obviously he will be replaced by a new person. Just some things which are out of the world, indeed. Um, Today, as you can see, we are joined by uh, our good dear friend Abdurrahman. He kindly accepted our invitation, and he is joining us in today's this evening show. And inshallah, we will have more like a discussion about several different things, inshallah. So we'll definitely be benefiting, inshallah, from him joining us this time, and inshallah in the future as well, whenever he's available. So just really continuing with that in terms of how things change every now and then. We all know that Mr. Trump, he was very much, quite proud of his position. He's quite a proud person as well, as a general. So somebody in a position of power, often, it seems like they are really forgetting that they are not above anyone. They are supposed to be the leader and the person who actually serves their people. So every time, unfortunately, this authority and power, it plays such a game that people often they really forget their actual responsibilities in a way. So how we will, well, I think how we will do is basically we will try to talk about some different topics, inshallah. So we will be sharing both our opinions on the same subject. So otherwise, this change of faces, or as they call it, the turn of the time. How do you see it? Like how does it work in your view?
In terms of obviously the results that came out today, I was reading this one tweet by a Muslim comedian, and he said that now that Biden is projected to win the election, at least America will see itself returning to a phase of normalcy, and that they can now continue bombing the Middle East, but with more elegance. So far as that is concerned, like pretty much similar, I would say, to Barack Obama's 8-year long term, is that in the sense that on the face of things, it doesn't really change that much, in the sense that you could say like Barack Obama's like healthcare plan and everything, he had more support of the people, but in terms of what went down behind the table, there were a lot of things that weren't necessarily brought up and that people still don't hold him to account for. Seeing how Biden was his vice president himself, I think it's going to be similar. But then again, I'm not really the most learned person in terms of politics, or even the most aware in terms of American politics. In terms of Trump no longer being in the White House, I would say the way I saw it was at least that Trump, like you could say what you want about him, but he did not try to hide his intentions. He was more or less an open book. Like he wasn't as much of a hypocrite as most presidents of the America have been. So in terms of that, I would say maybe we may be better off without him. We may be worse off, but at least with Trump, we knew what he was planning on, and he didn't try to hide it. He didn't try to hide his intentions and say what you want about him, but at least on the surface, he did not appear to be a hypocrite.
But yeah, I mean, very accurately put, really. I was actually reading yesterday that the scholars, he had written a brief, uh, some of his thoughts really on what's going on, and he actually shared um, like a statistics of the voting and how people actually voted based on their religious views. And the dilemma was that majority of the American Christians, you know, as a in a broad sense of different, obviously, different groups, different sects within Christianity, of course, but majority of the overall Christian population, they were in support of Trump. And contrary, those um, who may not, basically be in line with Islam and Muslims in on the subject of moralities. We know that obviously um, Christians, their teachings, obviously they are the people of the book. So in a sense, their teachings are much in line in terms of the moralities and the other sort of uh, understandings of uh, life, and how it should be lived, and all these the good and the bad. So although they do sit on us at the same table on this subject, they are actually very much opposed. And on the other side, the groups like all these very much inclusive groups of all different backgrounds and different uh, the, the personalities and different natures, they are supporting somebody who are some against whatever the views of the right wing are. So it's quite a dilemma, really, that some people who don't agree with us on the subject of moralities and those things, they, in a way, they are on the same page. But somebody who does agree with moralities and they share most of the teachings, they are against each other. So it is again one of the sad parts of current world, that religious people, although having much in common, they are standing much against each other. And what we saw in France as well, that it was again taken as a very much, in a way, I mean, against Muslims, and people were obviously having sentiments deep down based on their religious beliefs as well. So again, it was seen as a very much two faiths standing against each other. The Muslim Ummah, they seem to be very much concerned with who becomes the president of America. Um, I mean, it does in a way affect, which Abdurrahman said earlier, that which will be the next to be bombed or something like that, unfortunately. But apart from that, it shouldn't be really a matter of concern for the general population, that whoever it is, really, um, it does not matter. We shouldn't be looking forward to it, like it seemed like we are part of that country, we are that much involved in it, and everybody has been discussing, and everybody was kind of happy that, well, Biden is winning. Trump is. It seems like he's not going to be retaining his position. So, what went wrong, Abdurrahman? Why is the state of people as such that they look for such a person as maybe it will bring something good for them?
Uh, I think maybe the way I see it, at least, is there's a fine, very defining difference between Republicans and Democrats. And the thing with the Democrats in general is that they're more inclusive, like Farzan Bhai said himself. And I suppose how people like us would at least hope to be portrayed or represented if they were to vote Democrat would be that inclusion would apply to them as well. So now that there's a whole there's like a whole environment of inclusion in all aspects of life. So not just based on race, but now based on gender as well, which has been like a real push in recent years. So in terms of that, again, it's not necessarily a good thing that a, just a party that's now been elected to potentially president and vice president. It's not necessarily a good thing for them, for from the fact that they're inclusive, for us to be supporting them, like people of Muslims in general. And I say that because I was reading this article a couple of days ago where one person who got elected as I think it was some governmental legal position. I'm not exactly sure what what the position was, but it was apparently some transgender Muslim person. And I suppose when you say inclusion, you have to deal with those sort of things as well. And then, sure, right now at this moment in time, it's easy to differentiate between what's right and wrong for people of our generation. But if we start seeing that sort of trend as a normalcy for a couple of years down the line, then I think
also came across that people were sharing that clip of Biden, mentioning or well relating the hadith of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Look at him, he knows this hadith, so people were actually happy about it. There was also an instance where Biden quite, sarcastically used the phrase "Inshallah." So it, I think it's very sort of insecurity which unfortunately Muslims have now, and it all comes down to again being far away from what actually requires from us as a Muslim. And obviously, if we are not strong enough within, then obviously we will be in a way that that hadith of Prophet Sallam where he mentioned that the enemies will actually come upon me. They come on a table spread, and it will be not relating to the numbers, but to many other things which the Muslims would have. And to be honest, what it seems like is the whole of the Ummah is very much waiting and seeing, who gets eaten next. So it happened somewhere. Well, it's not my turn. It happened to another country. It's not my turn. And it's again, unfortunately, what we have witnessed recently is another step which it only shows how deep down we have fallen, really, that we actually it has been pretty clear that pretty much all the rulers of Muslim countries, they were much aligned with that of the US policies and their interests, but now they are coming out much openly. And we know that this they call it the Abraham Accord, with where I think the Emirates, Bahrain, they have established full diplomatic ties with Israel. So it just shows another level of how much further away all the Muslims have gone, really, from each other as well as from their own the teachings. And we are happy that somebody else is becoming president. What it means, I'm not sure why people are actually happy about it, but unfortunately, that's how it is. And it does show that we are much more involved, and we want to be part of the general society. We want to fit in. We are afraid that we will be considered as outlaws, or kind of somebody who's not like a part of the society. And this whole fear, it leads to all these things that wow, we hope that somebody comes who is inclusive and who is not against us. But if we look back a few years, right, not long ago, when President Macron, he became the president, right, he was one of the moderate individuals. He was considered to be very much further away from the right-wing policies, and he was much beloved. Same goes for the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. People were very happy about him. He was quite inclusive. He was wearing silver kameez and going to eat festivals and dancing and this and that. So that was making people very happy. But when it all comes down to it, we all know what happened in France. We all know Justin Trudeau's remarks in relation to Israel, that they have every right to defend and regardless of what's going on there. So unfortunately, I think what we are lacking is we don't know our own roots really. We don't know our own. Well, we don't have sincere leaders to start with. That is one of the key problems. And unfortunately, when we start talking about the criteria, um, what we have now, unfortunately, for a leader, how he should be, then we tend to hear that, please don't mix religion with politics. Uh, and you want somebody who's not a corrupt person or who's not morally corrupt. You want them to be your leader, but let's not go there. Let's see how he does other things. Please don't involve his past, his personal life, what he does there. Those sort of things. They are very common to hear. And I mean, again, another lowest point which can be seen is that of how shallow people have become in Muslim societies. Really, that people are happy that the prime minister is handsome. It is one of the criteria, unfortunately. Whoever is more smart and good looking, they're happy with it. So, and it is very sad indeed. We have a criteria which was given by him. I mean, himself is a role model, but if some people consider no, that is way beyond anybody's reach, then you have the other individual as well who did follow the teachings which were given by professors. So this criteria of leaders these days, what has happened to it? Why people have become so shallow, and they have completely forgotten what a leader should be these days.
I think as a starting point, Frazan Bhai put it very well in the sense that uh, we as a nation have become very insecure, and how at least how the Prophet ﷺ envisioned his people, his ummah to be, was not to be a people that are at the mercy of the disbelievers. And like Farzan Bhai said again, like rejoicing when you see them being more accepting of you, or like seeing Justin Trudeau and Shalwar Kameez, that sort of thing. You have to know at the end of the day, you have to tell yourself they're not Muslims. And when it comes down to it, they will not act in your interests. Sure, in the short term, they might um, take into account whatever it is you may be, just to ease you down, maybe. But again, that's not the kind of person, the kind of people that the Prophet ﷺ expected us to be or taught us to be. And in terms of why we've become so shallow and just narrow-minded, again, as rightly put by Fazan Bhai, it is mostly due to the fact that we don't really have a figure that we can look up to. You could say maybe Erdogan, his uh, his courage against standing up, especially in terms of what happened in France. Um, just being fearless, really, and not fearing the consequences, because you have that faith that everything and anything that does happen to you or is destined to happen to you will happen regardless of what it is people want or don't want. It's just that iron like sense of blind faith, really, that whatever happens, it will be for the best, and that if you put your trust in Allah, then He won't just let it go to waste, essentially. Uh, Part of it, I suppose, has to do with the fact that we as a nation have deviated so much from what the true meaning was of this Islam. Uh, it's regrettable, that's for sure. Um, but I suppose you could say that it may be partly due to the fact that even if we are living like most Muslims, or like at least a lot of Muslims do live in non-Muslim states, and the majority of them do have a higher standard of living than they would in their home countries. So I suppose maybe it's like a sense of loyalty, maybe, or a sense of like gratitude that even though they know that the country that they reside in, their policies aren't necessarily in Muslims' interest as a whole, but like you sort of become short-sighted in that aspect. You see what it is that they're doing to you as a person, or like to your close circle of family and friends while in that country, and then you use that perspective instead of seeing the broader picture. So all Muslims everywhere in general. Um, and lastly, you could say that there's no real push for us. I mean, obviously, we see Muslims being slaughtered, and there's no other way for me to describe it really. In Kashmir, there's Gaza, there's Syria, Palestine, everywhere. But it's not the best way to put it, and it's not a very nice thing to say either. But like we've sort of grown accustomed to it, that it's not news anymore. Hearing about another bombing in Palestine, Nauzubillah, it's just become normal, and there's no shock value to it, and there's no real motivation for anyone really to just stand up. And again, part of that, if we had more strong figures that we could look up to, maybe there was a chance that something could have been done. Uh, but yes, it is regrettable. But inshallah, hopefully, if not in this generation, maybe a couple of generations down the line, things will change.
Inshallah, I mean, certainly. See, how Islam is really, we all would have heard that the more you push it down, the more it's going to go up. And I was just reading yesterday actually how the golden age of Islam ended when uh, Baghdad was completely you know put to waste by Lagu Khan. And again, it is sad, but it's again just something like very much. Very well, this is our new guest. Just put him aside. So unfortunately, what happens is, as we are discussing that, Muslims they completely forget their own responsibilities, their duties, and even though they will have a number of states, uh, many titles for their rulers, they are essentially powerless in exactly what's happening now. So when Baghdad was destroyed and the powerful Khilafat was ended um, of that time, people would have thought, this is it. Uh, Nobody else can get up now. But indeed, what happened? Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, from within the attacking armies, from within the um, Mongol hordes, really, people became Muslim, and then they took over the mosque, and they started to, fight for the same cause they were fighting against in the beginning. So Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, he doesn't really, need uh, the so-called Muslims to, work for his deen or to basically save his deen. His deen doesn't need any saving. It is indeed, our own salvation, which is relating to us, um, working for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and struggling in his way. Otherwise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need us, his deen doesn't need us. And that's had always been the case. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says it in the Quran that he replaces nations with each other, and one after the other, people are chosen to work for his cause. And unfortunately, I think it would be a sad thing. I mean, it is already happening that we tend to see that there are many people who become Muslim. They are more working, they are more interested, and they are more concerned about the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than those so-called Muslims backward. And with the criteria of things we have now, with the leaders we chose, and with the things we follow and what makes us happy now, unfortunately it is it's long lost really what the peak of Muslims was once upon a time. Again, Allah subhanahu, whether the Muslims are rising or they are being subject to pressures and cruelties, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's deen is free of anything, and it is there to last. It is because Prophet ﷺ, he gave his everything for his deen, and it is there to stay till the end of time really, regardless of what the Muslims do or not. But indeed, as we said, that it is our own salvation, it is our own duty to recognize that we have to work for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we have to play our role in doing that little bit to make things better for the whole world. Because indeed, Islam and this deen is not just for Muslims. It was, and it has been, and it will be forever for the entire human population. And again, it is sadly pretty much the case that we have failed miserably in conveying the message, in projecting the right teachings and the image, and obviously taking advantage of that. The portrayal of Muslims and Islam which we see, it's all completely negative, and the whole focus is to put them, give them such a bad image that people stay away. But indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has his own plans. People still, they get curious, they come, they learn, and they obviously they see the truth. So it's not us. If we fail, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's deen is free of any need. It's not going to go anywhere. It will be as powerful without all of the Muslim population as it is without needing anything really. So again, unfortunate that we have lost the sincerity within ourselves. We are not sincere to our own belief. We have completely basically moved away from the criteria of living our lives and living life as a society and as a nation. And we are happy with what is the least, the most moderate really, it's all about being projected as moderate and not being any type of somebody who is really strict upon his beliefs. It's all about being adjustable. It's all about being compromising and being soft, having that image that you are very you spread all the good things and you don't object to anything. Unfortunately, that's what we all are doing. That's what our leaders are doing. That's what our scholars are doing to some extent. And we have all stopped really, forbidding the evil. And we have stopped standing against the cruelty and the unfairness which is in our society. And it's all about just fitting in, really. And I think we will finish. Time is pretty much over. That one hadith of Prophet ﷺ, where he says that live in the world as a stranger, as a traveler, and he gave glad tidings to the strangers. And to be honest, if you look at it now, if you do follow your, if you follow and act upon your beliefs quite firmly, and you don't really compromise on them, you are seen as quite hardlined, and you are kind of cut off from the society. So indeed, it's quite difficult, but it was already told to Prophet ﷺ, hence he did say that strangers, people don't really talk to them, people don't really connect with them. So you will be seen as such, but again, as a Muslim, as a follower of the person who used to connect with those who used to cut off ties with him, and we all see how things went. So it is, again, we don't have to run away, we don't have to start living in mountains and valleys. You still have to live in the cities, and we have to really do our jobs of connecting with people with sincerity and really conveying the message, because we do try to save ourselves from, obviously, the fire, but it is also our responsibility to save others around us, because that might be something which, well, that will be something we will be accounted for, and it may unfortunately be enough to overshadow the other things which we do for ourselves, really, because we haven't done that one responsibility. Any closing comments, Abdurrahman?
Yes, just a couple of things that came to mind regarding all this conversation we had, especially revolving around the sorry state that the Muslim Ummah is in nowadays, and well, the disbelievers' attempts at trying to subdue what it is that we stand for, basically. So, first off, seeing how oppressed we seem to be in these days, and like Farzan Bhai rightly put, there is no need for Allah to have us to fight for His cause. If He wishes to do so, a caliphate could have been established by the end of this week. We don't know, and obviously Allah wouldn't need us to have taken part in that, but it isn't within our own salvation. It's an honor more than anything for us to have taken part in that. But maybe if we think, if you give it a little perspective, really, if we back up a bit and think about it, maybe all the struggle that we've been through for the past couple of decades, maybe the point of all that was to ignite within the entire nation a sense of frustration and a sense of purpose, that it gets to the point where we think enough is enough, and then we finally start standing up for ourselves and for what it is that Islam truly means. So that's one thing. And then two verses from the Quran that came to mind. The first one was وَمَكَرُوا وَمَكَرُ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. And they plan, and Allah plans, and Allah is the best of planners. And then another one as well, يُرِيدُونَ أَن يُطْفِئُوا نُورَ اللَّهِ بِأَفْوَاهِهِمْ وَاللَّهُ مُتِمُّ نُورِهِ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْكَافِرُونَ. And they try to subdue Allah's light. Um, they want to subdue Allah's light, but Allah will forever maintain and sustain His light, and that Allah will do regardless of how hateful that is to those that are against Islam. So again, maybe the part that we play in this is just holding on to that hope, hoping for and bringing into administration people that we truly believe would be representatives of what Islam was intended for. That could be our part in it, and then just spreading awareness. The most contributing factor, I think, that the most contributing role that we could play in this entire series of events is instilling within our own children a sense of why it's right to stand up against these people, why we don't need to see ourselves at their mercy, why it, um, and hopefully, like, pretty much all my thoughts.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair, very much for your time. We look forward to having you again, inshallah, whenever you're available. Inshallah, we look forward to it. And Jazakallah everyone for joining us. Inshallah, tomorrow we session with, and inshallah we will continue. Funny enough, it all started in previous lockdown, and well, it's pretty much 8-9 months. We are doing this every day, here and there, with different things. Try to keep it informative and captivating. So inshallah, we will continue with this in our usual weekly program. So take care. Jazakallah khair for joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.